All right, what is up, UX fam? How's your mom and them? Welcome to another episode of Beyond UX Design Live. I am Jeremy. If you're new here, if this is your first time joining, welcome. I am incredibly stoked to have you. And let's see, what I have some announcements before we get started. Let's see, I got to get my stuff set up so I do it right. Every time I do this, Annette, I screw it up.
No worries.
Maybe
Go
I'm
for
jinxing
it.
myself. Maybe I'm jinxing myself. All right. This now announcing for the first time the Beyond UX Design Merit-ish badges. You ever ship a feature that should have never seen the light of day, or survive a sprint planning where nothing got planned? Or maybe you just said, let's circle back under your breath for the 5th time this week. Well, you, my friend, have earned a Merit-ish badge. Introducing the Beyond UX Design Merit Badges, a vintage sticker set inspired by UX designers, PMs, and engineers who have seen things. Choose from 3 sets: Soft Skills, Sharp Tongue, Cult of Figma Initiation, Pixel Pusher Survival Kit, and more to come soon, so stay tuned. Each set of 5 badges celebrates the chaos, the coping, and the conference calls that should have been emails. Stick them on your laptop and flaunt them at your stand-up. Show the world you made it out of Q2 with your sanity mostly intact. Get 1 set of 5 stickers for $12 or 2 sets for $20 at beyonduxdesign.com/badges. Just promise me one thing: send pics and show me where you stick them. And if you haven't done it already, I got to go to the next one. Hold on, let's see. All right, and if you haven't done it already, please subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are a regular here and you feel like you're getting something out of the show, then I would really appreciate you leaving a 5-star review. That would help me out so much. And as always, shout out to my Patreon supporters: Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, Kevin, Jason, Michelle, Marty, Tino, Adina, and Zoe for all their support. And if you want to join these fine folks and many others and help keep the show independent and ad-free, you'll get exclusive access to the entire video library of episodes, including episodes before they're even released. Get instant access right now for as little as $5 a month. And for more information on how you can support the show and help more people find out about what we're doing, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. All right. So let's see. Aneta, I am so excited to have you on. This is now, let's see, you were on a while ago on the show. We talked about moving from architect to UX. Then we came on last week.
Yeah.
The years you were one of the first. Yeah. And this time, last week, we talked about senior UX portfolios. And today we're going to answer all those questions. People had a ton of questions, and we're going to get down to it and ask.
Super excited.
Yeah, we're going to ask you those questions, and then you're going to answer them. So let's see.
I do my best.
Yeah. All right. So before we get started, please, everybody, I would love to know where you're hanging out with us from. We've got some folks on LinkedIn. We got a bunch of people on YouTube live as well, hanging out. So before we get started, I would love to know, where are you? Where you at? Where you at? That's what we say in New Orleans. Where you at? Tell us where you at, and we will, we'll give you a shout out. All right, let's see. So Aneta, we've got a ton of questions. I already read your bio.
That's
good. 2 times already on the other show. I think everybody knows who you are.
Well, let's leave it.
Skip it. And actually, like, before we get out of here too, normally I ask, like, this or that questions on the live events, but you already answered the this or that questions. And I think we had so many questions that we're just going to skip the this or that questions. So we're just going to get into the questions. All right. So before we get started too, let's see. I want everybody to, one, tell us where you're hanging out with us from, but then also get your questions in. If you're hanging out on LinkedIn or you're hanging out on YouTube, you can put questions in the comments and we'll see them here. And you can get those questions in. We also have some questions that people submitted ahead of time on LinkedIn and online at beyonduxdesign.com/events, which you can hang out and find all the past events that we've done there as well. And so we had some people submit both. But if you have questions, you didn't submit them early, get them in the comments and we'll do that. All right, Aneta, let's see. Let's get into it. First up, so we're going to be talking today, just to refresh everybody's memory, we're going to be talking about senior portfolios and how seniors and all those people who have years of experience, we got all that stuff stuck in our heads, but it's very hard for us to often get that down on paper and impress those hiring managers and recruiters. So we're going to talk about that today. Exciting. All right. So we had a couple people on LinkedIn. I'm going to start there. Vina asked a really good question. And I think this is on everybody's mind. A lot of people who have been working for a long time, many of us, especially enterprise, and even startups too, NDAs. We all have a bunch of work stuck in an NDA. Vina had a 2-part question, but I'll try to combine it into ones. I think they're sort of similar. But how do we structure a case study when we've got a project or a feature or something that's under NDA? And how do we get around NDA or not even illegal, but how do we show our work without breaking the NDA?
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good question. I feel like we are already at the stage where literally all of our projects can be under NDA. Like for me, I would say 99% of my projects were under NDA, unfortunately. But I think the first thing that we should remember is to actually check those things that we signed up, those NDAs, right? Because one NDA doesn't equal another, right? It's not like there is one formula for what they, restrict us on. Like you need to check it first, either, I don't know, go on ChatGPT, like ask for summarizing this, giving you some tips, go to a lawyer, I don't know, read it yourself first before actually panicking and saying, oh, I can't show anything, or, this is the first thing. The second tip before we'll go into structuring is definitely to actually talk with the company, maybe your boss, previous boss, not sure, not, I don't know where people are at which stage, but at some point you can discuss those stuff, even if you have signed something. And if you haven't signed, for the future, it's worth actually discussing those things. Like, okay, but I need to have a portfolio. How can I show it? Like maybe we can, discuss what are the areas where I can actually expose some outputs from my work. Like, I don't know, some visuals, selected information, and so on. So we need to be, we need to think about it beforehand. But if we are stuck already, we can't talk with anyone, there are lots of different ways of how we could show our work in a portfolio, and where the work is under a NDA. First of all, we don't need to show everything, right? That's if we have a portfolio website. Another option is to not have a portfolio website, but maybe a PDF or a presentation that you can send over, and actually after the recruitment ends, we can actually hide the viewing permission. We can also have both versions. I think this is the common one. I've used this before. Like I had like a live website with a rough, like, top level information and sneak peeks into my projects, and I had a PDF version with a more detailed walkthrough. So this is another version. If we are going totally into live versions, we can, for instance, think about something I call in my portfolio course as well, project snapshots, or snapshots in general. So you kind of try to summarize some moments of your career, of your skills, some moments from your project experience where you made an impact, when you made a change that will actually sell and show your value in a short format. I call it snapshot because it's like a snap from your career, from your experience, but basically the concept here is to summarize and show it that way. Informing about an NDA, it's another thing we sometimes forget. Like, don't assume that every hiring manager will know that, this project is under NDA, or that you are not that skilled in storytelling, right? So this is another way of showing NDA. There are a lot of other things as well, but maybe Jeremy wants to follow up on this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So something that you said that I think is maybe just worth calling out is we often make a lot of assumptions about what an NDA is or is not. And I think it's important for us to remember that this is a legal document. You signed it.
Yes.
It's a contract. You are legally bound to that document, and you've got to know what's in it. And I think something that a lot of people do when they get a job and they sign an NDA is they are terrified to ask about it once they start working. And I've talked to so many people who are like, well, I can't ask them if I can put this on my portfolio. They think I'm trying to find another job, And I think this is like really important to remember that, I don't know how it all depends. The context obviously changes depending on your boss and what your personality is and their personality and everything else, and the culture of the company. But I mean, just being open and honest. I mean, like, if your hiring manager, your manager hired a bunch of designers, they know that you have to have a portfolio and keep it up to date. And you could always frame it like, I'm not looking for a job, but I try to keep my portfolio up to date, and just, I don't like waiting to the last minute. I always like to refresh my portfolio every 6 months or whatever. I'd love to talk through what's in my NDA, and I have questions, you could always ask HR, that kind of
Mm,
thing. If you don't feel comfortable going to your manager, one-on-ones and things like that are a really great way to do that.
yeah.
But I think that's something like, just don't assume what's in the NDA, and don't assume that everything has to be blocked, because sometimes it could just be obfuscating the data and you could show
Yeah.
exactly what it is. Sometimes it might be everything. Sometimes it's just the branding, so it really
Mm,
all depends on the
yeah.
company. And I think we get scared to ask.
Yeah, I think someone is asking about password protection. Actually, this is
Mm-hmm.
an important question about that it's related to NDA. So let me maybe comment on this one. I feel like password protection is the most common way. I
Mm-hmm.
think visible, at least
Mm-hmm.
visible. I think maybe because it's so easy to see that we are aware of for NDAs. But I think when you think about this password protection, it's like a boundary, right? Like a
Mm-hmm.
friction for hiring manager, for anyone reviewing your
Mm-hmm.
portfolio. So it's not my personal favorite. I feel like from a designer perspective, I don't think we love passwords as users. It's like, oh, where's my password? I don't remember my password. I don't remember the pin to my card.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things. Even if you, of course, if you don't have any idea or you want to provide something quickly and your portfolio already has this function, for instance, if you use an, I don't know, no code tool that has this function and this is the easiest for you at this moment, okay, but then you need to provide this password in a very easy way for a hiring manager so
Mm-hmm.
they don't get lost, or they don't need to ask you for a password, because they will probably not ask you for a password.
Right. And I think the other thing too to keep in mind is, a password is not a loophole for getting around an
Yeah,
NDA. I mean, just because you put a password does not mean you are not breaking your NDA. It might mean that the people who
absolutely.
who are enforcing the NDA might not see it because it's behind a password. But that doesn't mean that you are somehow safe from, the stipulations of that contract that you signed. And so I think that's something else really important. One, it like might not be legal to do it, which is
Yeah,
important, especially if, and I worked in GE Aerospace for a long time. A lot of the stuff that I have would be like export control data, which, like,
yeah,
that's a federal offense to share beyond just like an NDA. And I can get in civil trouble. That's a federal crime to share export control data. So, like, there's stuff that could be in that stuff that you're trying to share that might not be even legal
yeah,
to share from just like a criminal standpoint. So I think that's really important to think about. And the password itself, like you mentioned, is just a bit of friction. I think it's important to try to figure out like how to share this stuff. If that's important to you. Some people put it behind there because they just don't want people seeing it, which is fine. If you want that friction, fine, but know that you are adding friction.
yeah.
But if you're trying to get around the NDA issue, I don't know that like password is really the best approach, from a
No,
usability perspective or from a legal perspective. So anyway,
yeah.
so David, I saw you ask that similar question about proprietary info. Shout out to David. We worked at GE together for a long time.
Mhm.
So anyway, yeah, that I hope that answers your question. So this is a good one. Anne actually had Anne Cantera, shout out, former guest to Beyond UX. What's up?
Yeah.
All right. So she has a good question. An important distinction is the difference between what a recruiter looks for versus a hiring manager. Recruiters
Mm.
have every different portfolio critiques, and hiring managers and their feedback helped next level her portfolio. But what are the biggest differences there from your perspective?
Yeah.
Like, how do you sort of, is it one case study for both, or is there sort of like the snapshot maybe like for the recruiter, and then hiring manager you go a little more depth? What are your thoughts there, trying to appeal to those two often conflicting perspectives of a recruiter and a
Yeah.
hiring manager?
I'm not a recruiter myself, so I will be just sharing my perspective from the interviews I've done it with recruiters. But I think this is a very, very interesting questions. So I think from for instance, from my interviews I've done with recruiters and hiring managers, the one difference that I've noticed was exactly there were some differences between how every person was reviewing a portfolio purely because their role were different, right? There is a hiring manager who might be, but also not necessarily a designer, and there is a recruiter. I've had stories where hiring managers were telling me that they were providing recruiters with a list of checklists, like
Mm,
I think some people will call it scorecards or something like this. But I don't know. I'm not so sure if this applied for those recruiters. But basically, like a checklist, what they should check their portfolio and resume for. If this is like if they have already an access, if this the application went through this ATS system or through referrals, whatever. They checked it from, I don't know, concrete experience. For instance, checking projects, if the projects were in a concrete area that hiring managers were looking for, like kind of comparing and contrasting the job description and a portfolio. So that's what I've heard the most often on those interviews about recruiters scanning. Whereas hiring managers, I think, might have more design perspective. If they are designers, of course, they might also think about the team fit. They might also review your portfolio or case study on another step in the recruitment process. So this is another distinction in this process. But I think for the initial scanning the portfolio, I have never used two portfolios for a recruiter and hiring managers because I can't impact who will be reviewing my portfolio. If there's a bigger organization, this might be a dedicated recruiter, a headhunter also, right? There are different those roles that can be inside the organization or outside, or this can be one person if this is a small team. So I think the best tip, because we can't control this, is to actually create a portfolio that is understandable and easy for review for any of this role, no matter the expertise, the way how they review the portfolio, so that all of those roles and in all of those situations, you can be kind of prepared for all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so hard. I mean, this is something we always sort of lump hiring managers and recruiters into these like buckets and
Yeah.
personas, but they're people and they all have different perspectives. Some of them are very strict about certain things. Some of them couldn't care less. Some of them care about certain things, some of them don't. And I think it all depends on the people, obviously the personalities, their perspective, what their history working with designers is,
Yeah.
what the companies they work for, the industries they work in. So it's really hard to know. I mean, it's one of those things like, we could talk in generalities, but at the end of the day, like, none of us are the average. And, our situations might be very different, and advice that might work for one recruiter or hiring manager might be very different from anyone else. So anyway, I don't know. I
Yeah,
think
but
it's
it's
also worth
but
calling
it's
out.
yeah, but it's good to be aware. Like
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
instance,
absolutely.
I've learned about the checklist, the scorecards, the recruiter perspective. There's a headhunter who's not inside the company,
Mm-hmm.
so you already can make some assumptions about how this person can view your portfolio if they are not in an organization, but they are provided with some requirements. So you can make some assumptions, but I don't think it impacts in particular the review process. Like you still need to provide,
Mm-hmm.
sell yourself as a designer. You need to create a coherent story about yourself. Everyone is busy, no matter if this is a recruiter, hiring manager. So you need to think about this time to value. So meaning that you actually sell your value and show your expertise and the fit for the role as quickly as possible in a portfolio and in a resume, in an application in general.
Yeah, that's good. That might be like the best thing to think about too is, the one constant is like right now, especially everyone's busy. You've got
Yeah.
one open role, hundreds of people applying. How do you optimize time? Time to value. That's a great way to look at it. All right, here's a good question just from Tiniola. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. This is something I've run into working at a place like G for 4 years, working on one big project for a long time. How do you present unfinished or ongoing projects when most of
Yes.
the work is still in development or it's under review? He often worries that it doesn't feel complete enough to
Yeah.
include. How do you go about getting?
I think a similar scenario is for all those sunsetted projects that we
Mm-hmm.
for which we don't have metrics, those results that we
Mm-hmm.
all talk about online when we give advice. Oh, you need to show metrics and all this stuff. But I don't think our work is just about this ending, right? It's like a cherry on the top. Of course, the goal is to build and generate the results, but the job that we do is not only about this. We can sell the way how we work, how we make design decisions, show real outputs from our work to verify, I don't know, the craft, the visual part, for instance. We can, first of all, present somehow our way of thinking about making design decisions, right? How we navigate this whole process. So it's not only about the metric. Of course, they are like hooks, right? In social media, they are very engaging. They show the proof. But on the other hand, every hiring manager at some point can probably question those metrics or ask you about those metrics, and you need to be like prepared for answering them. And sometimes it's very hard, even if the project was like finished, completed, and implemented. Sometimes it's even very hard for us to connect the design role and your work with those metrics, right? So I think it's not only about this. So I would say that the best way to think about your story is, first of all, that it's on you to know and decide how you will frame it, because everything there is about the framing the story. And a story is not only visual but also the written format, the presentation. It's everything. It's this first impression that you make, uh, and I think we don't need to show everything, right? So you decide what information, what type of evidence you want to show to prove that you can do this job, and that you can do this job well, of course, right? Because no one wants mediocre designers, but everyone, especially right now in this competitive market, we look for the best, the ones that fit the most to our role, and so on. So this is how I think about framing any project. I have a lot of projects that were sunsetted in my career, or honestly. And another way, when it comes to, for instance, metrics, if you're worried about this, I try to first of all be aware of what type of area I impacted. Potentially, like for instance, the product part, the engagement, the retention, the conversion, the business part, the bigger part. Like, I don't know if this was impacted. I don't know. I cut some costs, or maybe I made an improvement, and maybe there was an increase in revenue because there was an initiative where I was involved in that led to this outcome, right? So I tried to frame then for instance, in my impact, that it was a potential impact in this area, or that I was aiming to impact this with my work. If metrics weren't measured, you can also talk about, I don't know, metrics you would love to measure. There are a lot of things how you might frame the story. So I would rather try to find things and ways of presenting your projects that will sell your designer profile, that will sell you as a designer. That would be my main goal. I would not focus on if the project was finished or if not. Literally, there are a lot of projects that were sunsetted, that were not finished. You can also break down the project. If this was like, I don't know, a couple years project, this is even impossible to show this all of your achievements and the process inside one story. So you can literally break it down into smaller snapshots, like, I don't know, maybe show a snapshot of a visual with one disclaimer, but then show a snapshot with a longer story where you actually maybe talk about one achievement, one initiative. And another thing is that, of course, from a project, especially those in more complex organizations, enterprise, B2B, that where, I don't know, low UX maturity organization, there are a lot of other things that you also impacted, not only the product part. So if you are aiming to apply for a role where this achievement would be relevant, like, I don't know, improving the processes, this can be also another story from one project, right?
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Yeah, I was talking with Mike Ridd from Dive Club podcast,
Yeah,
and this is an awesome bit of advice that he gave, and I thought this was really fascinating. But he likes to treat his portfolio and case studies sort of like a marketing site, right? And if you think about that, like, you could do a lot more than just a grid of case studies on the page.
absolutely.
So one of the things that I was thinking about would be really cool is, like, let's say you worked at a place for 5 years. You've obviously done more than just one feature for 5 years. You've worked on a ton of different things.
Absolutely.
So you could set up a page on your site that has like an overview of the project or whatever, and maybe, the logo, the like, what the thing's for, why, what high level problem it solves. And then beneath that, you could just have a couple of case studies, or a few case studies, 3 or 4, however many, that you've, like you said, broke up that larger
Yes.
project into, one individual feature. This is how we solved onboarding, this is
Yeah.
how we solved user management, this is how we solved a dashboard, whatever. And you could have like a case study on that sort of marketing landing page for, 3 or 4 of those features. And then beneath that, you could just have a couple of case studies, 3 or 4, however many, that you've, like you said, broke up that larger project into, one individual feature. This is how we solved onboarding, this is how we solved user management, this is how we solved a dashboard, whatever. And you could have like a case study on that that one large project,
Yeah,
you could even do that with like, a company. If you worked at a company, you could have one page for that company, another page for another company, and then break up your case studies that way.
absolutely.
And with websites today, I mean, it's so easy to like cross link and have stuff like and
Yes.
really dig into the information architecture and how you navigate and everything else, so that it's intuitive, and it kind of tells that story by putting those high level features together under
Yeah.
one umbrella project, but without having it all in one giant long case study. So
Yeah, I think it's like a common misconception that you just mentioned about like those list of case studies. I think we should like leave it behind.
yeah, yeah.
We live in an era where we have so many different tools that can help us actually break down and lay out the website portfolio website in a totally different way. But also, even if you create a PDF portfolio, a presentation portfolio, no matter the format, you can't, I think about a portfolio as a list of case studies. It just it you are limiting your opportunities, I think, in that moment.
Yeah.
You need to think more broadly, more holistically about like you are showing all your skills, not only the skills that you have gained in your, I don't know, you gained in your last role or just in design, for instance. It's not only about showing one work project doesn't equal one story project in
Mm-hmm.
your portfolio, right? So that's why I
Mm-hmm.
think, as well as the presentation format, I mentioned about the visual. You can have like a visual in one snapshot, in another it can be a full story, a part story. It can be connected. It can be like below the umbrella, as you mentioned. I've seen this type of portfolios where people were doing, for instance, career snapshots, like
Oh,
giving.
wow, yeah.
I think I see it more and more often. People create like show reels. So they even, I don't know, collaborate maybe with some motion designers, or they do it themselves. Like they create like a video showcasing their work in a visual way, and then they describe sometimes what like they summarize their career somehow, and below this they go with, okay, this is what I achieved in this company. Or sometimes they even summarize like, okay, I pitched this number of features to the CEO, this number of features went through, this number of things were implemented. I've seen this type of stories as well. So it's really about the framing, what you want to highlight, the volume, the quality. You can frame it. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's not like one, oh, I have this, I had this sunsetted project, this one project that lasted forever. Okay, but
Mm-hmm.
probably a lot of things has happened during this time, so you can break it down and tell a story in a different way than we usually do.
Yeah. So, Shanika, I hope you're pronouncing your name correctly, on YouTube, asked something. I think I'm going to say a comment, and I just want to get your opinion on it. But she said, let's see, where did it go? So I want to incorporate
Yeah.
all these things that she did into portfolio, but I'm wondering if I should do one case study and skim through the features, do one case study per feature. And we've talked a little bit about, you could have multiple case studies kind of thing. But here's like the thing that my statement is, you know, everyone asks, should I put X in my case study? Or they actually said, don't say should. They say, can I? Can I put X in a case study? Can I put Y in a case study? And the question is, I often ask is like, why can't you? Like, why wouldn't you be able? Like, it's your case study. Do whatever the hell you want. There's no like strict legal definition. This is a case study. This is not a. It's such a question I hear all the time. And my argument would be, it's your freaking website. Do whatever the hell you want, whatever you think makes sense for you. And I want to get your thoughts there. Like, what do you think? Do you have an opinion one way or another about like what can I put in a case study versus not?
Yeah, I think this is a common like stress that we as designers have. I used to have the same. I think it's because we were taught at school about some frameworks and models and, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, schemes that
Mm-hmm.
were supposed to bring us to a success, to this great ideal job. But those things don't work, honestly, because
Mm-hmm.
if everyone uses the same framework, the same model, they will present and use the same words in, everyone would do this. There's like very difficult for hiring managers to actually pick anyone from this crowd. And since we have very competitive market, they will probably wait for another designer who will
Right.
come with a more unique and fresh portfolio. So I think this is connected with the stress. I think this is like the mindset. I remember giving a talk, I don't remember when, where it was, but one, I think, key learning from my journey with portfolio is to realize that this is your website, as you mentioned, Jeremy. This is your representation of like, treat it like a product, treat it like, I don't know, anything you design, own it. Like, if you own it, if you really feel that this is you, you decide, this is the first step to be senior, by the way, right? Like, be responsible for your decisions, no matter if, I don't know, let's say that everyone is telling you, yeah, password protection are cool or whatever, and you will decide, no, I will not do this, I will do something different. But let's say that this hiring manager that will be checking your portfolio will say, oh yeah, you should have done this, whatever. It's okay.
Mhm.
I mean, we learn. Some people will like our portfolio, will find our work being relevant, will find our personality being cool, others not. you know it's you we can't please everyone. So I
Mhm.
think the first thing is to realize that we are not pleasing everyone, and making this step back and becoming a boss and the owner, everyone of our portfolio, the salesperson, the marketing person. Like, this is like your business tool, this portfolio, in my opinion. Like, you need to convince someone to actually call you, to reach out to you. So the question is, okay, why should they call me, right?
Mhm.
And then how, and then what, right? It's not like, oh, what can I it's you can everything. You can have long case studies. I've seen I remember one portfolio having like very long case studies, but very engaging,
Mhm.
those intro thumbnails, and also the way how everything was presented was so interesting, and the thought process
Yeah.
was so well written that I was really engaged reading this. I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, I will and I spent a few minutes on this portfolio. So I think, like, you never know. It's not, there's no one formula for this. I think, like,
Mhm.
people sometimes, I had a chat with one of my students for my course, where a person told me, but I want to be on a safe side. And I'm like, but what?
Yeah, like, who hires, like, the safe designers? Like, yeah, you know what I really need? You know what we really need? The only thing we're missing is, like, a really safe designer. We just need a really safe designer. Like, no, I don't think anybody says that.
Yeah, so there's no safe side, but I also understand the pressure in which we all are in, especially people out of the job, looking for a job right now, that you are stressed and that you want to be really, like, cautious about every decision, every move, so that you don't miss on the opportunity. But unfortunately, I think you need to be more brave and be more, like, set and confident and intentional about what you actually show, and not think in those mental models that we used to have like a few years ago about portfolios. You
Mhm.
need to be more creative and actually try to play, even if right now I don't know, you send a portfolio, one version of your portfolio for one job, it won't work. Okay, there's another one and another one. You can also be proactive, and also you can iterate. It's not like you create one version of your portfolio, that's the end.
Right.
The end, you
Right.
will not be able to improve it or change it at all, or you will not be able to change the positioning of yourself, because this is another stress that many have, right? It's you can do it. It's not like a concrete thing. It's you
Yeah.
can change it.
Yeah, I love that. It's like something I tell people a lot too, when I do coaching. Is, there's a reason we call it software, right? It's soft, it's changeable, it's malleable.
Mm,
We can update it, we can add things, we can remove things, we can change things. This thing should be a living document. It should be, you get
yes,
feedback,
work in
change it.
progress.
Yeah, you come up with some other ideas, change it. This thing is never going to be 100% complete, and it should never be 100% complete. I personally feel, you might not touch it
Absolutely.
for months or years, but like at some point, you probably need to go back at some point and update it. So I love that. I love that call out. All right, so we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about the non UI heavy case studies. We had a lot of
Yes.
people submit questions. I had somebody ask a question. I was doing a lot of service design. Somebody was asking about like a lot of strategy stuff. We had a researcher and somebody even in the operations side ask a question very similar. I'm going to lump them all together, but it was basically the gist of it was like, how do I show these things and if make an engaging, compelling case study without a lot
Yeah.
of flashy UI to show off?
Yes. That's a very good question. Um, and it's also a very common thing for many of us, people in, I don't know, enterprise, B2B. We are, I think, overwhelmed a bit by all
Mhm.
those beautiful portfolios that we can see and find online with, I don't know, mobile app designs that are interactive, prototyped, and so on. I know that many of us actually don't work in this scenario. I, for instance, work mostly in B2B sector, and
Yep.
a lot of those screens that I have were even not interactive when I was doing the job, because it wasn't like, there was a lot of other things that we need to fix. So you need to first of all verify where you're going to apply, right? If, because it's also an expectation, first of all, like the fundamental thing, like, okay, if I'm going to apply, I don't know, to TikTok or whatever, like mobile app where the light part is like highly required, then you might need to create something like this or show something like that, right? But when you're not going into this type of organization, there is no need to do it unless you want to treat this way of presentation as your differentiation, right? As your unique skill. Then okay. So I think that's the first thing. Like, not every design job is the same, right? So the requirement will be a bit different, expectations will be different. But of course, we also need to talk about this competitive advantage. So thinking about the more holistically about this, like, looking at those flashy designs, and in your design area where you don't have this type of things, you potentially could stand out with this, but it's not like a requirement. And the presentation, when you, for instance, lack visuals, or when you were, for instance, a UX researcher or service designer, or maybe you work on very complex, I don't know, customer journey maps, like we've seen it all, right? In enterprise, you have done it, something like this, probably,
Yeah.
Jeremy. And in that moment, I think you need to think, you need to design your portfolio. So you need to think, okay, if I will copy, for instance, this like very complex, well thought through customer journey, will it be readable, and will someone would like to consume it? If we know that in this first stage of a portfolio review, there is literally just a few moments that hiring managers have for your portfolio. So, because later on, for instance, if you're in this another round of interviews, you can go deeper and actually show more thought through process under this customer journey. But I think in this initial stage, you need to think about simplifying and communicating everything clearly. So not just because people sometimes end up copying, like, and pasting those artifacts to the portfolio, which don't sell anymore. To be honest, there are too many of us, like too many designers looking for a job. It won't sell. People will even not see this.
Right.
Sometimes even some folks try to blur some stuff, like, I don't know, or show very zoomed out visuals, like screenshots from like some whiteboarding tools,
Right.
where
Yeah.
we right where we can't see anything. And there was probably a moment where showing like your way of working, that you can use the tool, or that the environment and the context of the work, it was beneficial. But I don't think we are at this stage. I think we are much more mature right now, especially we have the technology is developing, so these things don't sell as well. So you need to be intentional about everything what you show, and show it in a readable and clear way. You can simplify the customer journey you have done. You can summarize the sticky notes and all the insights that you've made, and just pick the most important one and actually create maybe a scheme. I've seen a lot of UX research schemes for insights, for like, so that hiring managers, everyone can actually quickly, scan through your portfolio story, and actually find about the problem and connect it with what you have actually delivered and with the results. I feel like I always try to think about this as okay, I want to communicate what I've solved, like the problem, and then how I solved it briefly, and then what were the results, and like somehow show those 3 points, so that you can present this transformation. If you don't have visuals, or if you haven't been involved in creating those UI outputs, there are a couple of options that I can suggest. First of all, imagine there is a salesperson. Those dudes have those beautiful presentations, but the visuals are not there, right? They haven't created those visuals. So you can always use a visual from another designer or from company, but just credit it, like just inform what is your work, that this is just a representation of to visualize what you have like impacted, what you have contributed to. it's fine for me. Another thing is you can always design something. For instance, if you have, I don't know, lost something, or maybe if your designs were not that good, you can create a future vision version. That's another thing, if you of course have time. This is something that if you want to show your visual skills, this is the way to do it. You can also think about the whole portfolio presentation, meaning that there are a lot of websites that are very heavy on content, right? Like, for instance, if you sell a course, if you, I don't, educational content, for instance, there is a lot of information that you want to provide to a potential customer. So you also play with a typography, right? With the way how you present things, also in words. There is a visual hierarchy, headings, body descriptions. So you need to balance all of those things so that the portfolio is actually scannable as well. I think like maybe this is one of the common mistakes that people make when they don't have those visuals. They tend to write those long descriptions like reports, and it's not about reporting but about selling, that you can make this transformation and deliver some results to a business. So you need to think about all those things. And even if you don't have visual design skills because it wasn't your job, there are templates that you can use. You can always ask for a feedback a designer. These are the tips that I think could help you, because the visual design, even if you're not a visual person, somehow impacts the first impression, right? We
Yeah,
are
absolutely.
visual, yeah, right. So you need to like frame it somehow so that you look readable, scannable, and it just looks nice, right? That the person is like, okay, this is cool. I can go through it for a few seconds, right?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, that's like something just, it's so easy to just forget that like you can't just dump a bunch of text on a
Yeah,
page because like you mentioned before, the idea of like you had this long case study, but it was engaging, right? Like it's not that it can't be long. It's that
yeah,
it can't feel long. It can't feel like a pain to read, it can't be painful to
yeah,
go through the whole thing. But if you've got, topography like you mentioned and the data hierarchy is right there, maybe you can use iconography or icons or something somehow to separate things. And then I also think like
yeah,
thinking about the information architecture of your case study
yes,
itself and having like maybe there's a nav or something that like sticks
navigation
to the
and
left and you
everything.
can kind of click and go to the subsections, and then repeating that over and over so that it becomes familiar. And this is how I navigate my case study. You don't have to have the big flashy visuals to showcase your work. So anyway, great advice. I love that. All right, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and this is an interesting question. So this, where did it go? Let's see. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I can't. Well, I'm gonna summarize it because I can't find it in my list. But basically, this person was coming from an agency and wants to work
Mm-hmm,
in house, and all of their
mm-hmm,
work was an agency setting, but they're trying
mm-hmm.
to get a job at a larger in house. So
Yeah,
coming from that agency to in-house, is there a distinction that you would make between agency and in-house work, and how might you craft a case study to showcase, that for an in-house team when an agent, agency and in-house very different from my perspective at least.
yeah,
How might you go? It maybe like let's like think about it from one to the other. From going in-house to agency, agency in-house. I'm trying
yeah,
to shift gears there, or B2B, B2C, whatever.
yeah, yeah,
How
yeah.
do you craft that case study to
When you
target
want
that?
to switch.
Yeah, you wanna switch to a different industry.
Yeah, so I think you need to think about different criteria, like the one that we talk about a lot, which is the relevance, similarity. So, like, think about how your persona, design persona, fits to this role that you want to target, and the way how you present things, the way how you talk about those things, how it fits to this role. So this is the first thing, and it's the same for B2B, B2C, in-house, agency, freelancer. But there are probably some characteristics that you might want to highlight. For instance, going in-house. If you're in-house, you own a product, you
Mhm,
own something.
mhm,
When you're an agency, a freelancer, you are hired to, a lot of times people expect us to be quick, to
mhm.
be easy to hop on a problem and solve it quickly, to fit to the team,
Yeah.
to be adaptable, flexible, like easy to work with. Even it's even more important when you are a freelancer or an agency, from coming from an agency. If you're in-house, I think the ownership part is very high. So maybe this is something to highlight, because maybe coming from being a freelancer, an agency designer, maybe you don't know fully what does it mean to own a product. when you are in-house, you own a product, of course not fully, partially your work, but you will be working on this part of the product or feature, whatever, for longer time than you used to do it when you were a freelancer or an agency designer. So
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of think long term. You can make a vision for a product. You can justify your decisions also more on this, I don't know, systemic thinking. And also you can probably combine and connect those decisions within the organization itself, the product offer, and so on. Of course, you can do this as well, being a freelancer or an agency designer. This is absolutely the same stuff. I think even more and more expected these days, because it's kind of we don't want to have like better designer or more fitted designer on any of this side. But I think if you want to highlight those things, maybe these are the things that I would highlight. For instance, right now I'm working on my portfolio, which is positioned as a freelancer. So I try to highlight that I can deliver something fast, that I can be easy to join a team and just be easy to work with, that I can make this effort to adapt, not them. So this is the things. When you are in-house, maybe this ownership would be more highlighted for me, the long-term stuff maybe. But you can also highlight this if you're an
Yeah.
agency designer.
Yeah.
If you're an agency designer, probably more diverse projects, right? Because this is often the case. You go to an agency to actually get more diverse experience, whereas if you go in a product, you actually want to be more specialist. You learn more about a specific area, specialize in this more, maybe be more skilled in some things. Also in-house, you can impact other areas,
Mm-hmm.
processes, the culture. So these are also, you can probably navigate to a different role as well. So all like a managerial role, for instance, right? But for all of those roles, definitely collaboration is a common thing. The way how we design decisions, the way those things are, I think, quite common.
Yeah, I love that. All right, I could dig into that, but I got two questions left that I think are really
Yes,
interesting to answer, and we've got about 12 minutes left.
no worries.
Um, this question is a really great one. This is a question from where, oh god, my list is like so disorganized. I'm going to summarize it again because oh, here it is, from Kaito. All right, so I was a design lead on a large project. I didn't do all the work myself. Is
Yes.
it okay to include the visuals and things that I didn't design myself if I credit the designers on my team? How do you, I'm just expanding this question a little bit. How do you, as a lead, someone who didn't do all the work themselves, kind of
Yeah.
manage the work, how do you show this off while not, implying, I guess, that you did the work yourself?
Yeah. Very good question. I think it's a very common challenge for all of us, because our work is collaborative, and many
Mm-hmm.
times we are not the only one working on a project. So I think the first thing, also from my observation from the industry and discussions with hiring managers or designers, is that sometimes we are too not so concrete about what we have done in a project. So I think this is the
Mm-hmm.
most common mistake and like comment that basically we do in the industry. Like, okay, so what you have done here, is it like, because sometimes people will use this statement, we designed, we decided, we researched,
Mm-hmm.
which is partially probably true, but of course we want to hear more about the concrete work that you've done, the
Yeah.
concrete decisions that you've made. And I know it can be tricky, especially when you're done with the job and you haven't documented anything. By the way, yeah, document stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't documented anything, and then you're like, okay, I was working on this designs with another designer, and actually we collaborated on this closely, and actually I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are always things that you've impacted more or you've contributed more to than others. It's not like there is half or everyone contributed the same way. So I think I would be very clear about what I designed, I decided, I contributed. If you work in a team, or if you like it was like you would collaborated with another designer, you just need to be very clear about, okay, I work on this project. No, I wasn't a solo designer, but I work on a project with a few other designers. I don't know, there was a lead designer responsible for this, and there was me who was responsible for that. If you, for instance, you have done research, right, you sometimes show some insights, but you have worked with a UX research on this. also write about this, that okay, the research team provided me with this insights. I think it's about framing the narrative. And I think what some hiring managers and some people in the industry comment on is that we are trying to say that we have done everything and all of those
Hmm.
things when we haven't. But ultimately it's a collaborative profession. So just like being very clear that okay, I work on this with this designer, I work on this with this researcher, or I have done this is my output. I think output is very easy to divide. I think this is the
Hmm.
easiest, actually. I would be very clear on this. And if there is any visual or work that was fully even made by someone else, I would definitely credit this person. You can always ask for a permission if sometimes they don't want to be mentioned. Then you can, for instance, state generally that it was a product manager or researcher. Some people are super cool with like linking to their LinkedIn profiles or
Hmm.
portfolios. So I will be more transparent, and I think outputs maybe are the easiest to divide, and maybe try to say more I did than we did.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, Sonia Lewis on LinkedIn mentioned my key contributions to the team, like kind of listing that out,
Yeah,
like maybe in the header or something. But it's interesting,
very
like
good.
as a lead, I mean, like chances are good you're applying for another lead role. And those people that are hiring, they're going to be looking for your ability to lead the team more than your ability necessarily to design every little bit yourself. And so
Absolutely.
making sure that you're talking about how you led the team. How did what did you lead? How did you lead it? Were you part of strategy? Did you organize things? Did you were you involved with sort of operations and figuring out like how the team is tracking work, or
You need
how
to
the
talk
team
about your
is?
work.
Yeah, exactly. And so as a lead, I mean, I'm a lead manager, whatever now, and so like it's a lot different, player coach more than just like hiring manager,
Yes.
or sorry, HR type manager. But like
Yeah.
that's something people are going to look for. They're going to want somebody who can do those things and not necessarily get lost in the weeds, because that's not your
Yeah.
job anymore. So
Yeah.
how do you
Absolutely.
highlight those things? So anyway, I love your advice there, and making sure. And I'm very guilty of that too. Like I like the we all the time, which is like guilty.
Yeah,
Well,
we
that's
all
not the.
have
I
done
mean,
it. No
but
worries.
in a hiring process, right? Like they don't care about the we, they care about the me. And so like it's a frame, it's a sort of mindset shift that's like really hard. All right, so we got about
Yes.
8 minutes left. This is an interesting question. Mafalda on YouTube asked this: big thing nowadays is showcase how we incorporate AI. Any
Mhm.
ideas on how to show that? I've heard recently a lot of hiring managers now looking for people who specifically are using AI in their process to and those are people that they're trying to hire. My team, for
Mm.
instance, we've been talking about like how do we incorporate more AI into our workflow to kind of help us
Yeah.
be more efficient. So how do you show that off?
Yeah.
And actually,
Love the question.
let me actually add to this, because I think this is something a lot of us have case studies that were done maybe 6 months ago before AI really took off, or like a
Yeah.
year ago, whatever. We didn't really have it incorporated in our process. One, how do we incorporate that in like a future case study? But also, if we've done in the past or worked in the past but haven't, is there any way to kind of show how we might have used AI? I'm just kind of curious, like how you might get that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are two things that we need to highlight this. First of all, there is any design role that we want to apply for that is not specifically about designing AI products, but they might expect us to be,
Hmm.
for instance, more
Hmm.
efficient, because the probably are more creative. Probably these are the two common things for this type of role, right? Like, okay, I'm not going to design an AI tool, or I don't know, another lovable whatever.
Hmm.
So this is the first one. But another thing is when you are going to apply for actually a place that will be actually about designing an AI specific tool. So I think if you have already, like, depending on what you have done, right? What is your experience? What is your work? If we talk about those things that been done like years ago, I mean, it's very hard to add an AI information there, probably. But you can tell a story about how you try to, how you right now in your experiments, even personal experiments or on work experiments, you can create a snapshot out of this as well. How you try to be more productive, how you have done already something on the job.
Hmm.
You don't need to wait until a project will end, until I don't know, you will have any results. You can already pick up some things and try to think about, okay, do I want to highlight that I am more efficient with AI? Do I want to highlight that I am more creative, or do I want to highlight that I can actually design AI products? So I think I would first think about the goal, what is expected from the role, and what I want to show, how I want to position myself as a designer. Then think about your situation and constraints. Okay, maybe you are a person who have been designing AI stuff and you are like heavy on this, then this is probably the easiest part. But if you haven't, then you need to think about, okay, can I, for instance, I've been in a project for a while, so I can incorporate some AI stuff right now. You have been probably using some AI things, like, I don't know, maybe AI writing assistants, maybe AI note takers. Of course, I don't think you should make a story about AI tools, but more highlight how you have tried, or you are trying to be more efficient or more creative, how you have tried to prototype something so that the basic thing, wireframe, is done in a second, and you can actually build on top of this and actually show something for feedback and user testing quicker. So about the frame, I think this is about the framing. If you haven't done anything and your project is not about any, and you haven't used any AI stuff, you can also create a story about experiments, right? Like, okay, this is how I try to sneak peek into those projects, into my future projects, or into my passion ongoing projects, or into my ongoing projects at work or at university, AI. But definitely don't make it about like just the tool. It's not about this, because the tools will change. There are a lot of those things online. Of course, you can mention your toolkit, but not as a like top priority, rather like something, I don't know, third priority, right? Because first of all, it's more about the outcome, how you explain your design decisions. And I think the big thing that I think about when I think about showing AI skills in my portfolio is about showing, okay, how the fact that I'm using AI, how the business benefits from this.
Right.
If this is the speed, the efficiency, if I am more creative, if that can lead to, I don't know, building a better competitive advantage over competitors. I don't know. Try to think about the benefits and why you are using the AI, or why you could potentially use it in this role that you're applying for.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you called out like how you used it in your, like we had a bunch of interviews, we didn't have time, so I used this tool to synthesize the data
For
or whatever.
instance, right?
And it's I'm just I'm reminded of like, how people, well, I'll back up, like we've got a toolkit of all the things we can do. We can do,
Yes.
we can do journey maps, we create personas, we can create this and that. And like sometimes you need a persona, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you need a journey map, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you
Yes.
need this, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you can use AI tools and sometimes you don't need to. And
Absolutely.
I just think about like how I've seen so many case studies with like personas, and then they like, here's a persona
Yes.
we created. Why? Well, because someone said we had to have personas in our case study, and so like they never mention the persona again, and it's just like this is completely useless and worthless. But
Yes.
how are you using AI? How are you? I love that, like incorporating that. And you could even, if you're worried about, you could have like a tools section up at the top where you like, these are the tools that I use throughout.
Yeah.
Figma, Miro, whatever,
Miro AI.
Lovable, whatever, whatever, like whatever tool you want to highlight, that can be up there. But also like, I love how you like sprinkle it in throughout, because that shouldn't be the main focus of your case study at the end of the day.
No,
And I
because
love that.
the business doesn't care about if you use AI. Of course, they are obsessed about this right now. It's very normal, right? Like there is a new thing. They see that, I don't know, ChatGPT, OpenAI has been successful, so they try to incorporate chats everywhere and so on. And now we have this, boom, and everyone thinks that there will be, they will get more customers, more increased revenue, or basically grow just because they will use AI. We all know that it's not about this, right? AI, the tool doesn't guarantee the success, right? If you copy a competitor, it doesn't mean that your product will be as successful as your competitor. It's not about this.
All right, I love it. All right, well, we are right at time. Before we get out of here, let everybody know where they can find you. where can they find your course and all that stuff?
Absolutely. So yes, I have this course about portfolios with a community. So if you want to join, it's uxportfolio.co. I also create content about portfolios and also a bit about AI recently. I've been testing a lot, so yeah, I've learning a lot about this. Not saying that I'm an expert. I'm not. So much to learn about this, but I love portfolio topics. So you can find me on LinkedIn, of course, and also on Instagram. I create content there as well. You can just type ux.aneta. And if you have any questions to me about portfolios or you want to chat, you can always DM me. I reply to all messages myself.
Right on. All right. Well, Aneta, this has been amazing. So much information here. I know there's a lot of questions still in LinkedIn and YouTube that we did not get to. If you know, I don't want to.
I will try maybe on LinkedIn.
If you have time. Actually, YouTube when it's over, the comments go away, which is really weird. I don't know why.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on live events at least. So anyway, all right. Well, Aneta, this is amazing. Check out uxportfolio.co. Get in there. And Aneta, if you're not following Aneta, I'm sure you were following Aneta. If you found this, you probably found it because Aneta is all over the place, but Instagram as well. Did you mention Instagram?
Yeah,
you mentioned it. So anyway, find Aneta, follow her. Tons of great information, amazing stuff.
Follow Jeremy.
Oh, and follow me too.
Buy his awesome book that I have somewhere here.
Yeah, it's right there. I see it on. Oh, that's my bookshelf, not your bookshelf.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's right there on your bookshelf. Wait, no, that's mine.
I have it here. I can see it.
All right. Well, that is it for Aneta and me for today. I hope we helped to shed a little bit of light on portfolios for seniors. And
thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. All that beautiful knowledge that's locked away in your brain. And if you listened all the way until now, then you have definitely earned a merit-ish badge, whether you survive tricky team dynamics, Figma fiascos, or pixel perfect feedback loops. There's a badge with your name on it. Grab 2 sets for $20 at beyonduxdesign.com/badges. Just promise me one thing, that you will show me where you stick it. Send me pics. I can't wait to see. Let's see. That's not what I want to show. This is what I want to show. If you liked what you heard today, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would love it if you left a 5-star review. That would help me out so much more than you know. And if you know somebody who might find any of this stuff useful, then for the love of God, tell your mom and them. That would be fantastic. Help keep the show independent and ad-free. Check out beyonduxdesign.com/support to find out how. Join Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, Kevin, Jason, Michelle, Marty, Tino, and Adina, and many others, and help keep the show independent and ad-free. You'll get exclusive access to the entire video library of episodes, including episodes before they're even released. Sign up for the newsletter, beyonduxdesign.com. I hope you keep coming back for more great UX tips from Beyond UX Design. And until next time, remember, you're more than a designer, because there's more to UX and design. I'll see you around. Take care. There it is.